everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we have a very special guest joining us for an insightful conversation. It's our first guest on my YouTube channel, so I hope that you will like it and you will like the idea of having those conversations with people that really created an impact in their area of expertise. So it is my absolute pleasure to introduce George, a distinguished leader in the world of commercial innovation, sales management, and market development. George is the founder and the chief commercial officer at Ascent Commercial Solution, where he leveraged decades of experience to help businesses overcome growth barriers and optimize their sales strategies. So today we are going to talk about what it takes to build a winning sales teams and how leadership shapes success and the ways companies can navigate today's constantly evolving market. So George, what can you tell us about a little bit about your background and what brought you here into the world of sales?
Hey, Nicoletta, thank you very much. So my name, George Koehnke, and probably the most circuitous route to come to sales, where I learned so much in the process about things like growth mindset, sales skills or life skills, the things I talk about today. I actually started learning when I was a kid, and believe it or not, to date myself, pumping gas as a teenager taught me about sales, but I didn't listen back then. And I didn't listen to the skills I was picking up. But I was learning about customer centricity. I was learning about sales. I was learning about how to manage my time, but I thought I was just pumping gas. And so one of the things that I'll talk about with folks is listen to the clues and the skills that you're picking up in life and learn how to leverage them for your overall success, both personally and professionally. From pumping gas, I went to college, got an engineering degree. I left college, worked for Procter & Gamble in manufacturing plants, ran several manufacturing plants, and then I was asked to come to sales. And my picture of sales was someone with a broad smile and a plaid jacket that makes people feel good, and that's how they sell. And what I learned very quickly when I started scratching at that a little more was sales is actually problem solving. Sales is actually business management. Sales is doing a lot of the things I was doing when I was pumping gas, understanding what customers need and delivering that with excellence. And so after 35 plus years with Procter & Gamble, I looked at where I wanted to go next. And I said, I want to work with more companies and people. I'd like to continue doing what I'm doing, teaching people how to sell, how to lead, and how to professionally and personally develop themselves. And so I started Ascent Commercial Solutions. We've got several canned products that we use, and we'll talk about one of them today. And we have others that we actually roll up our sleeves and work with clients, understanding their sales process, understanding their organizational development, and trying to bring high productivity and performance into their commercial activities.
Wow, really inspiring.
Well, thank you. So Nicoletta, can you share a little more of your background? Because, as we were talking earlier, I'm sure there's some folks that would love to learn in my network that would love to learn more about you and your expertise, which is quite substantial as well.
Yes, so I have 25 years of experience in global sales and business development. I've started like you, very small. I started like a technical engineer in a very small area. I'm Romanian and I started in Transylvania. And then I became the sales director for Romania. I worked for Danfoss, I worked for Vacon. Now I'm working for mylock. And every time I wanted to learn more about what makes the customer convinced that they want to work with you. And I was, and I still am, and I think I will always be passionate about talking to customers, talking and convincing them that we have the right solution for them. And I like listening to them. I like creating and establishing this relationship with them. And most of them are still my friends, even though we are working or not working together. So yes, I've been starting as a small technical manager engineer, and then step by step I took European, and then I for the last 10 years I have global roles. And I really like what I'm doing, and I'm like you, passionate about sales. So today we are going to talk how to build an amazing team. So that's the main point. So what do you think would be the primary thing when we are building a winning team?
That's a great question. And I think you even spoke to many of the attributes of a winning sales team. So you talked about listening to the customer. Talked about being passionate to solve their problems. And when we think about that's what selling is. When I thought about the person in the plaid jacket and the broad smile, that's not what selling is, or it's
Right.
not the selling that we do, right? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to focus on the customer. We want to understand their problems, and we want to provide solutions that allow them to be successful. And so when you take a step back from that, a successful sales team is an organization that is focused on the customer. And so in some areas they talk about customer experience, customer centricity. I think fundamentally, when we think about sales, it's externally looking at the customer, at the market. And I'd like to add to that another aspect of the sales team, and that is something called everybody sells. And so when you think about your sales team, I also would like us to consider that anyone that touches the customer is on the sales team.
Right.
And so your customer service folks, your technical service folks, anyone that actually, your administrative person that's managing trade events, that
Right.
is actually calling customers. So anytime we talk about or talk to the customer, that's a customer moment of truth. And are we representing ourselves? I had a situation this week where I was personally looking to purchase something, and the customer's answering system was a negative moment of truth for me. That was sales. They actually made me angry to do business with them. So when you think about working with customers, we want to drive positive moment of truth, not negative moment of truth. And we want to touch them in a very positive way. And so when I think about selling and a sales team, the first thing I'd like to do is get broad as to anyone that touches anything. Even that answering system is part of my sales team, right? And so any way we touch the customer, we want to be striving for that positive moment of truth. And then when you look in many organizations, the technical service and the sales team may be two different functions.
Mm.
And so we need strong collaboration skills so that those functions are actually working together in a very productive way to deliver those solutions to our customers.
And
So
many times did you find this not existing, this cooperation between different functions?
it's very tough because typically those functions organizationally have leaders, and
Right.
those leaders, of course, want to be successful. And if those leaders don't see that collaboration at the top level leading
Mm.
their success, their personal and professional success, it starts making it difficult. And that's as an external supporter of the sales organization. That's one of my challenges is to help build more awareness to this. And I've seen both great collaboration where you're driving great success, and I've seen some barriers set up that we need to work on removing.
In my years of working, I've seen that building a successful sales team is mostly guided by having the right vision and having the right focus and the mission to be very clear for the sales team. And if the sales leader or if the main leader that is up there, he is able to inspire, then we can have this focus. Do you find this in your area?
Well, and I think it comes down to what the total organization strategy is. When
Right.
you go all the way up to the CEO, is that CEO strategy to be customer focused and recognizing the customer is delivering the revenue to the organization? Or is that CEO very focused on other KPIs that sometimes build friction between those different functions? And so I think it all starts at organizational strategy. And when I think about strategy, strategy cascades down to the organization. And those organizations that I see in my experience have been most successful are those that actually deliver a cascading strategy, objectives, action plans, KPIs, not only for the CEO, but even down to the frontline worker that's running the plant, knocking on customer doors, handling customer service. When those are all aligned, I see the company is typically quite successful.
I was at the conference, and the guy that was presenting at some point, he was asking, what are the main KPIs we should set for the salespeople? And I think that's a very important question also in our discussion, because building a very successful team, sales team, you need to have the right KPIs in place, and you need to be able to track performances, not only to track the number of the meetings or what they are putting in writing. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that's absolutely spot on. So when you think about, different organizations are delivering different results to the organization. They all have to come out net, net, net at the top line profitable. But you look at your supply chain is delivering low cost supply. Excellence in quality, excellence in all your ESG metrics, and low cost as well. The sales team is driving revenue generation, right? So your sales team is out there ensuring that we are working and delivering profitable revenue with our customers. And the issue that comes out of that is if the sales team doesn't deliver the volume and the revenue, the rest of the organization can't deliver it for them,
Yeah.
right? And so, even in recession, I had one client, his statement of purpose included, we do not recognize a recession. We will continue driving our sales regardless of the macroeconomic situation. And I love that. I had a situation with one of my sales team that one of the prior recessions, the response from my sales team was that the customer isn't buying. To go back and ask the sales team, so are you telling me the customer is buying zero? Well, no, it's a recession and their volume is down. But our agreement is on a volume. It is not on a share, it's on a volume. And we are saying that we're going to make this a volume available to our customers and they're going to buy that volume. That's our agreement. And if we don't deliver that volume, we need to think about what that does to the rest of the organization. Because if the plant's not operating at the volume that they budgeted to produce, they now are not going to be hiring. They're not going to be putting their people to work. They're going to have layoffs. They're not going to be, they may have to go downsize or reduce the cost of their employees. That's all because us in sales didn't deliver the revenue. And when you think about how that impacts the rest of the organization, we need to really understand our KPI is, regardless of the marketplace, as my client said, I don't recognize a recession. I will sell. And when I started challenging my team to go out and hold our customers accountable for our agreements, believe it or not, they found that our customers started placing their orders with us. And I had one of my salespeople come back to me and said, George, what's really unique, the customer said they were pulling our orders from our competitors. They were placing the orders according to our agreement because our competitor wasn't holding them accountable for those agreements. So we were getting our volume and we were able to keep our entire organization operating while our competitors lost their share positions.
I think that sometimes even if you don't have these contracts, for example, where I'm working, we don't have this type of contracts to make them buy again and again based on those contracts. But if you are there, if the customer sees that you are still active, that you still want to provide a solution for him, that you still can solve his problem, then he will be open. And then the question is, will he go to you or will he go to your competitor? And then it's up to the sales team to make it come to you and to close the deal. So what do you think is the best method to make some clear goals for the sales team?
Well, I think the first thing is making sure the sales team understands what they're delivering. So as I've worked external in Ascend Commercial Solutions, what I've learned is many organizations don't actually write down what is the sales responsibility of the salespeople, of the sales organization, and down to the individual salesperson.
You
And
don't
so
hear just the numbers. You mean here everything that is included in that matrix.
even start with the number and then dissect how that number is delivered. I find that making sure that you have clear KPIs. So as an example, sales managers are good at saying, get your CRM data in. Sales managers are very good at saying, go out, or typically are very good at, this is how many sales calls you need to make. And they're doing those in-process measures versus what is really, let's start with the number one result you need to deliver. This is the revenue. This is the volume. This is what we need to deliver. Now, when we talk about cascading, what are the activities we're going to do to make sure we deliver that number? And I think getting down to that level of granularity and then managing in process how people deliver that and how well they're delivering that, and coaching and guiding when we're off from that is incumbent on the sales leadership to do.
And if we are thinking of some examples on how to make those objectives, what would you say that we could talk about?
Yes. So I think the first step is start and look back at priority setting and how do we get clear on what those priorities for our salespeople are, right? So I like to think in priority setting. I like the Eisenhower matrix, which talks about what's urgent, what's important, and getting very clear on what you're working for. And I like to also integrate that with a concept called 5 rocks. It's like, what are the 5 most important things you're working on? And getting very crystal clear on those 5 actions that you're taking as part of your work. And those things should be what everybody wakes up in the morning and says, this is what I'm going to do. An example is, who's your most important customer? A lot of times when I work with clients, that's my first question. Who's your most important customer? And after a while, we get down to what they say is their most important customer. And then I have to ask again, why? And do you understand why that's your most important customer? And that's when the conversation gets difficult. But when you think about that 5 rock approach, who is your most important customer should be one of those rocks.
Yeah.
And what are you doing? What is your action plan for that most important customer? And in sales, typically, is what's your second most important customer should be your, typically what you find is your top 10 customers are delivering 80% of your sales volume, right? It's a typical ratio. And so who are those most important customers that are actually turning the needle? And in business development, when you're looking at growing, what is that business you're looking to develop? That's probably one of those rocks as well. And who are your contingencies? That's in it, because in sales, we have churn, right?
Right.
We can't prevent our competitor's customer from buying our customer. And so that adds a dynamic into, we need to make sure we've got a backup customer ready to come. And so those things, as we get into what are those matrix, what are those deliverables, we need to make sure we're very clear that we're covering not only what we know, but what we don't know.
And you were discussing about, so in the case that those objectives are not happening, and then we need to coach, and then we need to establish the new ways of doing business and the new rules, let's call it like that. So how do you have some tips on how really can we make a great team to work together, to collaborate, and to have this spirit that we are one team and we are here for winning, and we are here to grow, and we are here to be maybe a family is too much said, because now these days every company says we are the family, but let's say that we are a team that has the same aim and it has the same goals.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and then you're starting to get into the whole culture of the team, aren't you?
Right.
And
Correct.
that, that culture of collaboration, as we talked earlier, that culture of leadership. Because when we think about it, we're all salespeople are leaders, right? Even though you don't have the stripe on your sleeve, every one of us is a leader. And hopefully your sales manager is not traveling with you every day of the week, calling on customers. They're expecting you to be managing your time, managing your engagement with your customers. And part of, that's delivering leadership behaviors, right? And when we think about a team of leaders, now we also got to recognize, as I said earlier, as you look at leadership, you want leaders to collaborate at the top level. Our team of sales leaders should be collaborating amongst themselves as well, shouldn't they? And
Right.
you think about a well-functioning team, you've got tenured people that have been doing this for 20 years, don't you? And if you've got a good, well-functioning team, you've got new people that have just joined your team in the last 12 to 18 months.
Mm.
And you probably have someone in the middle or some people in the middle. And how do you bring that tenure diversity, right? We like to talk about diversity of our teams. Tenure is a part of the diversity of our teams. And
Right.
having a healthy culture of recognizing and rewarding that tenure is important. So when I think about that team dynamic of collaboration, of mutual support, of developing each other, there's mentorship and coaching is not only from the leader down, but it's best when it's even amongst the salespeople on that sales team.
Yeah.
And building that culture of mutual collaboration, coaching, and developing is important as well.
And for example, in my teams, what we did is that we shared experience. And I think sharing experience, good or bad, sometimes bad experiences are even more helpful than the positive ones. Or just to ask a simple question like, hey, how and why did you won that deal? Why did you lose that deal? Why did the customer choose you over the competitor? Having these discussions, I think, always gives ideas to the newcomers and even to the old ones which are in the sector, and they want to be better and they want to have higher sales.
Absolutely. I use a tool called CARS,
Card.
CARS, context, action, result, and suggestion.
Cool.
There's many ways of doing case studies. What I love about CARS is that last box called suggestions, and it speaks to your point there. So context would be, what am I trying to do? Am I negotiating with a customer? Is my customer not taking the volume that we agreed to?
Can we do this because you have such a large experience in trainings and this role plays? Can we do the role plays in virtual meetings? Because these days it's not only face to face that you get to have all your team together. And is it possible to do it by virtual?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I have one client that as we worked through, essentially 90% of their team was virtual.
I want to say, by the way, for our audience, I'm located in France and you are located in US. So
Yes.
we're not very close to each other, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And so what you look for are the tools that allow you to build that collaboration, right? So right now we're on a Zoom call, which that gives us the video connectivity. And then this card slide, if we would be sharing right now, it'll be up in front of us and we'd be going through it.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be face to face. And in many of my trainings, I am virtual throughout the US with an audience that's not all in the same room.
Coming back now to the winning sales team, so coming back to how to build that, I want to ask you, what is your personal leadership philosophy? So do you have some um, things that you can share because of this huge experience that you had in your career?
Well, think about what we were just talking about, how coaching and mentoring helps drive success.
Mm.
how a well-functioning sales team working together actually drives greater productivity for your sales team. So now let's think about sales people being leaders. So when you start out saying, how do I lead my sales team? The first thing I'd like to start with is, what is a leader? Right? So there's two views of leadership. And again, just like everything else, it's all balanced out. But you have the formal authority of a leader, and
Mm.
that's the person that has the stripes on the shirt, and they're the ones up top. And you have the informal authority, which is the ability to motivate, to understand. You use the word empathy, very critical, recognizing and rewarding your peers, very critical. And so when I think about the informal versus the formal authority in leadership, I'd like to actually defer more to informal. And so if I am leading an organization, I'd like to empower my team to be able to deliver the results. Let's go back to how we even started. The first thing you need to do is make sure everyone understands what our objectives are, right? You got to get aligned KPIs. If everyone knows what we're trying to do and how we're measuring success, we now can actually start working more independently and more collaboratively on how do you deliver those results. And so when I think about that team, I do want diversity of team. I do want the youth. I do want the tenure. I do want what's in between. I do want the ability to bring groups together virtually and in person, where that group has an objective. It's not to sit there and have a party. It's there to work on, how do you solve the problems that we have as a group, right? So
Yeah.
when you have a recession, how are we going to overcome and deliver? Just like my client said, I do not recognize a recession. When you do have a new product initiative, how are we going to put our collective minds together on how do you execute that product initiative? And by doing that with the diversity of your team, one, that you inspire collectively that group to go off and achieve your objectives, I think that is powerful.
I think that for those companies that really want to succeed, that they want to grow, they want to be the innovators, they need to find a way to bring those sales teams that are empowered, that have impact, and they have the willing to do great things.
I think that's correct. I think that's correct. And you said something that is very critical, that you want
Hmm.
as a leader. That's your objective.
Yeah.
So when that's your objective, there are tools. But a friend of mine once told me a long time ago, it could be simple, but it's not easy.
Right. No, sure.
So it takes work. And the good news for me and Ascend Commercial Solutions is there's people that want to work on that and get better.
Mm.
And I enjoy working with those organizations and helping them. And even though I'm not within the organization, I've got my pom-poms and I'm cheering them as they get their successes. And it's fun.
Yeah. Do you work also with leaders?
I do. I do. So when you think about the coaching to win is really driven to the leadership effectiveness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's not sales team only. So when you think about leadership, when you think about lead, educate, guide, and coach, those are not things that a sales leader only needs to
Yeah.
do, but it's the entire organization needs to get good at that.
Super. What could you say now to finish this conversation in a very positive way? And who should be your client?
Well, I think you got to start out with your comment, which is, what do you want? So if you're looking to drive higher productivity and higher performance from your organization, if you're looking to leverage the diversity of your organization and build collaboration, I mean, those are the clients that are, for lack of a better word, forward thinking, looking at what is on the horizon for their organization. I think you need to, of course, you need to have great product development. You
Mm.
need to have good marketing and communication of what your product provides. But you also have to have those empowered people in your organization that are going to be driving forward even when you're not looking at them, right? And
Right.
so, I don't think in today's world we've got enough people to look over everyone's shoulder. I think we need to build trust and aligned objectives with our organizations and our people. And we need to build that trust that they're going to do the right thing. And just as another comment on that, and it takes time. So culture change takes time, it takes perseverance.
I'm so happy I met you, George, and it's so nice to see that there are people which are passionate of sales, of leadership, just like I am. I think we could have a discussion for 10 hours easily.
Well, I got to add to that. I mean, I've enjoyed getting to know you as well. And quite frankly, it came out of networking and looking beyond my home industry, right? So my background is in consumer goods, chemicals, and some work in transportation and logistics. You're working on some very high-tech products there that we would consider very forward-looking. And yet you and I are comparing notes, and it's almost like we're reading the same book. And I
Right.
think that's something that's critical that your audience, my audience that will hear this is, you know, connect those dots outside of your home base, outside of your home industry. Look to benchmark with others that are not doing what you're doing, because now you're bringing in learning that could differentiate you versus your competition.
Growth mindset, right?
Absolutely. That's probably the best way for us to end this discussion. You hit the nail on the head.
Perfect. Thank you very much, George. I really enjoyed our discussion. I'm really looking forward. Maybe we will make some more if that will be successful. And for sure, we will stay friends.
Absolutely.
And thank you all for watching. I know it was a bit longer video, but I hope that you made your notes, you have your task or your ideas on how to improve your daily life and your daily sales life. And see you to my next video. Take care and bye.
Bye bye.